You know, I feel really compelled to make this video, and I have to preface before I go any further. No, I am not a Bungie shill, nor do I think Marathon was perfect in any capacity. But I do believe we need to have a real grounded conversation about what this Marathon Alpha even was, because I really feel like 99% of individuals totally just glossed over what this Marathon Alpha was. So let's talk about it. Before the Marathon Alpha even started, Bungie decided to drop a long blog post about the NDA being lifted and what this alpha was. And I'm going to go ahead and read what they said verbatim here, all right? Bungie said, "This is a true closed technical test of Marathon. Our primary goal is to test two things: technical capabilities and our moment-to-moment gameplay loop. We plan to break stuff." That's it. This wasn't a full game drop. This wasn't meant to compete with the likes of Arc Raiders. It was a vertical slice, just a test build, okay? They even spelled out to us what is not going to be included here in the alpha. They said that these were not the final visuals, or the lighting wasn't finalized, the UI was not polished. This is not a build that has all the runners included. Not all maps or zones are included in this build, or the Marathon ship, whatever we want to reference it as. No pinnacle or in-game content is here in this build, no ranked play, no final weapon balance, and definitely no complete progression or storytelling systems are implemented in this vertical slice. So for my people out there comparing this Marathon Alpha to Arc Raiders and saying, yeah, this feels empty, it feels hollow, well, let's be honest, yeah, it's not the full game, you know? And look, I gotta call a spade a spade. I felt succumb to that as well. I read this blog post initially and was like, cool, played the Marathon Alpha and was like, all right, you know, slick. And then when the Arc Raiders tech test came out, I jumped on that and was like, oh my gosh, man, right? And just naturally as humans, what do we often do? We compare, right? So the first thing I did right away was like, man, Arc Raiders has crafting in it. Marathon doesn't have crafting. Arc Raiders feels immersive. Shoot, Marathon doesn't really feel as immersive, right? And right away, I completely forgot about everything that Bungie listed in that blog post. And it's obvious that I was not the only content creator that fell succumb to that. I've seen posts everywhere talking about, man, like Arc Raiders is absolutely stomping on Marathon. Marathon's loot loop feels thin, X, Y, and Z, right? Which are all fair observations, and they would be even more fair if this was meant to be a beta or this was the finished product. But the fact of the matter is, Bungie told us on numerous occasions in that blog post that this was not the final product, nowhere close to the final product, you know? Bungie had this NDA lifted so that they could get community sentiment on those core things, on the technical capabilities, and on that moment-to-moment gameplay loop, whether if we're talking PvE or PvP. And they reiterated on numerous occasions in this post that, look, this is unpolished, it's unfiltered, it's unrefined, like that's to be expected here. And that was Bungie's whole MO for this alpha, not to show us everything, but to gather feedback before they decide to proceed any further. Now, with that all being said, the overarching themes such as no solo play or no solo viability, right? I've complained about the down system and the revive system, right? Like some things like that, hey, look, that all contributes to the overall gameplay loop, and by all means, I believe that is valid feedback, you know what I'm saying? And I honestly think Bungie would be goofy to not take those type of things into consideration and figure out how can they answer those questions. Shoot, I will go even as far as to say like having a crafting mechanism, and I mentioned in the prior video of mine, I didn't realize how much I love having crafting in a game like this until I played the Arc Raiders tech test. Then I was like, oh my gosh, having a system like that here in Marathon will be incredible. So again, things like that I believe are valid points of feedback, you know? But when we're talking about where's the story, when we're talking about, man, the outdoor environment looks terrible, things like that, again, those type of things weren't meant to be shown to us at this moment in time, at least when we're talking about the narrative. And even one of the developers came online and said that, hey, look, the outdoor environments aren't necessarily all worked on and polished. And the alpha build that we played is actually a few months old at this moment in time. So what we're seeing outdoors isn't indicative of the final product. So in all actuality, by us looking at this Marathon Alpha like it's going to be the complete game, we set ourselves up for disappointment. We set ourselves up for failure. And then we put this precedent on Bungie like that's borderline crazy, you know? Think about it like this. Bungie came out and said, hey, we're going to give you a piece of the game and we're testing these key things right here. This is not the complete product, so please don't look at it like it's the complete product. And what did we as the consumer say? Okay, yeah, I gotcha. We booted it up and was like, man, this feels incomplete, man. Bungie, y'all should delay this, right? Y'all should let this bake more. Dog, what are we doing? You know, what are we doing? Look, I know I sound like a shill a little bit, right? I know it sounds like your boy's on the good copium. You know what I mean? And let's be honest, it's really hard to fathom that Bungie can make a lot of things shake before the game releases, at the end of September. So that ends up being, 4.5, 5 months from now. But if I'm not mistaken, one of the developers actually came out and said, hey, look, there are a lot of things that you all believe cannot be changed in that short amount of time, which is, of course, 4.5, 5 months, that really can be, you know? Pretty much saying with the utmost confidence that, hey, look, we can really get to it if we really need to get to it, right? Now, there will be some systems that will not be in play at launch, but look, we are peeping it. We're checking it out, right? Prox Chat, they heard us loud and clear. They're trying to figure out from a legality and a compliance standpoint, how can they bring that into the mix? You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty confident they feel that way about some other things that the community has brought up. So my people, as we move forward, I highly encourage you to look at Marathon as what it was. A simple test that we got the opportunity to look back because Bungie decided to lift the curtain for us to be able to look at. So when you're giving feedback, give the feedback on the solo play viability, or as I mentioned, on the revive system, or on how the guns feel, right? On the shields, the time to kill, the things like that. Give that feedback for sure. But when we're talking about how things look, when we're talking about narrative beats, when we're talking about things of that nature, we just honestly need to see more. We need to see Marathon in a state that's much closer to the final build, like maybe like a true beta state, for us to be able to give feedback in that regard. But at this moment in time, I don't think it quite makes sense to. And please, let's stop comparing Marathon directly to Arc Raiders. You know, the more that I've played both, because I was able to play the tech test for Arc Raiders and this alpha for Marathon, I think I've drawn the conclusion, and this may be a bit subjective, that the games are going for two different feels, where Arc Raiders is meant to make you feel kind of hopeless, right? You are a raider and you're going out here with all these bots that are so much stronger than you and that can put you in the dirt, and you're fighting other raiders. Like, it's meant for like that post-apocalyptic steampunk-esque type of feel, where Marathon is going for much more of like this futuristic, you are part of this AI consciousness type of ordeal. You know, I don't think that they're going for the same feels. Again, it's kind of hard to explain the feel Marathon is going for at this moment in time, but again, I don't think they're going for the same feels, and I think that even makes more sense when you compare the gunplay, where Arc Raiders is much more sluggish, a bit more jarring and things like that, and Marathon's much more like snappy and arcadey, you know? And look, you can call me crazy, but I believe that there's a world where Arc Raiders and Marathon, pending Marathon doing what they need to do, aka further fleshing out the game and listen to community sentiment for the most part, right? But I digress there. I believe there's a world where both games can coexist, you know? And if you tell me I'm crazy for thinking that, then I would say, hey, how can Counter-Strike and Valorant coexist? Because they do. How can Fortnite and Apex Legends and Call of Duty Warzone coexist? Because they do, right? Who's to say that this casual extraction shooter type of genre can't coexist, you know? Because I truly believe it can. There are going to be people that prefer Marathon when it is its complete and finished product, and there's going to be people that prefer Arc Raiders when it is in its complete and finished state. And at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, if both games are successful and they are combating to, you know, one-up each other, us as the consumers, yo, we win. We win because we're going to have better products. Hopefully we have more consumer-friendly products as a byproduct of that, and we can ride off into the sunset with nothing but enjoyment in the extraction shooter genre. But enough of me rambling here. Let me know your thoughts in regard to what I had to say down below, and please, 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 if you have not done so, just give this all some genuine thought, right? I feel like a lot of times we can see an opinion online and that opinion becomes our opinion. I don't want that to be the case for you. I want you to critically think about the things I've said, think about the Marathon situation, think about Arc Raiders, just think about this all in totality. and then comment down below if you all agree with my sentiment. If you disagree, that's all good. I only ask that you keep it civil in the comments and you keep it civil with your boy. You know, don't hurt my feelings. And we all good from there. I love you all. Thank you all so much for coming and watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.